That's the only progress we've had so far. Is the is the rec is the recording in progress? All right, so let's begin then. Excuse me. Anybody, either of you have any questions, comments about anything from the past, things that have come up recently, Jewish questions, things about you've heard Jewishly, you wonder what it is, what's that all about, whatever.
There's a local study group here that is getting together, and I think they're going to start Pirke Avot also. So I ended up
Really?
buying. I think I purchased. I think it's the Art Scroll, the big green one, and it should be in next week. So I'm
Oh,
looking forward to
wow.
that.
Wow, that's a biggie.
My ever since I've been introduced to even the slightest of Pirke Avot, it's always been a interest in mine to study it out more. So this is awesome.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Great, great, great. Okay, good. So we're going to be looking at, if by any chance you're on that Chabad website, we're going to be looking at teaching 16, number 16. And so I can say that several lectures ago, we came upon a teaching of a Rabbi Yaakov who had this to say. He said, one who is walking on the way, you may recall this one who is walking on the way and is reviewing his studies and interrupts his studies by saying, what a beautiful tree, what a lovely field. This person has endangered his soul. You may remember that a few weeks ago, and we wondered why would you be considered as endangering your soul? It sounds like a wonderful thing to do to notice God's creations. There's a phrase in the Psalms, how wonderful, how great, how many are your deeds and everything you create. We thought that was part of a spiritual response to what you see. Wow, God, look at this. This is an amazing field, an amazing valley, an amazing grove of trees, whatever it is, flowers. So we were wondering at that time, why is that something that endangers your life? And I remember that time that the major opinion as to why that was is because if you consider it an interruption, that's why it would endanger your life. In other words, if you think that doing all that is interrupting your study, you're wrong. It's part of your study, part of your acknowledgement that there's a God who has created not only the holy texts but also the students of the holy text and also the beautiful trees, the gardens, the flowers, the clouds, everything is beautiful. So so if you think that's an interruption, that's where you're making a mistake. It's not an interruption, it's a flow of your study is to appreciate God, excuse me, and all that he's created. So now this same Rabbi Yaakov of the late second and early third centuries, he gives us an imagery. This is again in the teaching number 16. He gives us an imagery that could be indispensable in how we see and understand the value of following our faith community. And his teaching is one that could get us moving when our faith and our rituals and traditions temporarily lose their luster and beauty. And that can happen sometimes, you know. I pray 3 times a day. Not always in the synagogue, sometimes on my own. I have study partners throughout the week. I have what I would consider a rich spiritual life, together with the holidays, the rituals, customs, ceremonies, etc. At the same time, there are some times that I may feel like, what's this all about, Alfie? What's the bigger picture here? Or I may feel like what I'm doing feels like minute. It feels almost insignificant or of little value. And that can creep in every once in a while. For some people, a lot of times in a while, that you feel that what you're doing, like, does God really care about if I do this particular ritual or if I pay attention to this nuance? Is that making a big difference in the cosmos, if you know what I'm saying? So Rabbi Yaakov is going to offer us an imagery where he teaches the following. This is again in teaching number 16. He says, "This world is like a lobby before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the lobby so that you may enter the banquet hall." It's an interesting picture. In
Mhm.
one of the synagogues that I served in Baltimore, Maryland, there was a huge main sanctuary that I always joked slept 1,500 people. So,
Mhm.
but it had 1,500 permanent seats. And during the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they would add another 200. So anytime we would address the crowd on those high holidays, you're talking to 1,700 people, which is exciting. That's an exciting group to address. Anyway, before you got into the main sanctuary, there was what they called the vestibule, which I guess is a fancy word for lobby, vestibule.
Mhm.
We probably taught this to our kids, eat your vestibules because they give you nutrition and stuff like that. So we don't eat the vestibules, but that's the image I have. There was this large vestibule where people would gather before going into the main sanctuary. So when Rabbi Yaakov gives us this image, that's what I think of. What does he mean? And how does that help us feel that everything that we do is significant and not insignificant, even though sometimes we may roll our eyes and say, you know, does it matter on Hanukkah if I light it this way, if I set it up from right to left or left to right? Does it matter? Is it a big deal if I light them in this order, 8 to 1 or 1 to 8? If I say this blessing, I don't say that blessing. So Rabbi Yaakov compares this world to a lobby, this world to a lobby. It's a temporary waiting room, as they call Florida. Sometimes
Mhm.
people say, "Oh, you're moving to Florida. That's God's waiting room."
Mhm.
Uh, okay, I don't know if I agree with that, but so the lobby is a temporary waiting room, and after that short stay in the lobby of what? What do you get in that short stay? At most 120 years. That's how long Moses lived. And unfortunately, there are those who are fortunate or unfortunate to just have a little time in the lobby. After a short stay in the lobby, you're admitted to the banquet hall or the world to come. So the vestibule is this world, and what you do in this world has critical value, and we'll find out why. And then from this world, you go on to the banquet hall, which is considered the world to come, known in Hebrew as Olam Haba, the world that is yet to come, the world that is the great reward for those who deserve that type of reward. It's a great payoff of a good life, and what you earn in the lobby helps get you into the banquet hall. So there was a great teacher named Rav, R-A-V. He taught in the third century, suggested that in the world to come, there is no eating or drinking, there's no bargaining, no jealousy, no hatred or strife. And all that the deserving ones do is sit with their crowns on their heads and enjoy the radiance of the divine presence. It reflects the idea that in the world to come, it's a spiritual existence. Now,
Mhm.
is he saying that, there's no physicality, the way the Jewish tradition understands, there's no physicality in the world to come. There is a spiritual radiance in the world to come, spiritual closeness to God's throne, whatever that means. And therefore, whatever you do in the lobby is reflected what your reward is in this world to come in the banquet hall. So, one interpretation of this imagery of lobby and banquet is like one who waits in the king's waiting room, or sometimes a doctor's waiting room when your appointment is at 2 and it's now 3:30 and you haven't seen the doctor yet. Your only concern is whether you'll be granted either with a king, a royal audience, or with your doctor, even a few minutes. Sometimes it's 10 minutes and it goes by very, very quickly. Your only concern is that you're granted an audience with whoever it is, and that they'll be receptive to your requests. And likewise, the only real agenda, says Rabbi Yaakov and Rav, the only real agenda that should preoccupy a person in this world is his eventual audience with the King of Kings. And one who wastes their resources in the pleasures and considerations and seductions of this world and doesn't utilize them in order to purchase a respectable portion in the world to come, they say has a false perception of the meaning of life. We often grab for the wrong brass rings in our current life. And then what do we have to present in the banquet hall? Some rusty, old, unpainted rings where we could have brought in the gold and said, here's what I'm presenting for my reward. So every little thing we do in the lobby is like an hors d'oeuvre. So I love a good food analogy.
Mm.
It's like an hors d'oeuvre. What's your appetite to get into the main banquet hall? And perhaps another analogy that can be useful is that of a carnival. I'm guessing that at some point or another we've been to carnivals by ourselves, children, grandchildren, and going to a carnival can be a lot of fun and you can play all kinds of challenging games, but the bottom line is what are you doing at the carnival besides eating cotton candy, getting sick, and playing all these kinds of games? Is in order to get the tickets to redeem them for a fabulous and overpriced prize. Card Carnivals are well known for overpriced prize. So how do you spend your time at the carnival? The lobby will determine what you receive in the end in the world to come. And the more you play, the more urgently you treat getting those tickets, the bigger the payoff in the world to come. So that's an interesting image. So
Mm.
bottom line, don't think in your faith tradition, whatever it is, don't think that anything is indispensable, that any ritual, any teaching, any thought, any prayer, um, don't think that it's tiny in God's eyes because each of them is a ticket. Each of them is an hors d'oeuvre to the big banquet hall.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. I think those are helpful images
Mm.
uh, to think of. And yeah. So there's a great Hasidic master that we may have mentioned before named the Baal Shem Tov, literally translated as the master of the good name. He was the head of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov. He lived from 1698 to 1760. He asked one of his disciples to visit one of his primary students while visiting the city of Mezrich, the city of Mezrich. And when the disciple came into the poor looking house so sparsely furnished, he couldn't believe that the apparent poverty in which the student lived. And he said to him, how can you live like this? So little furniture? You should know, by the way, that today some of the great Torah authorities, who especially live in Jerusalem and other cities in Israel mostly, you walk into these are Jewishly world-renowned authorities that get hundreds of Jewish questions a day and they try to respond, etc. Well-known authors of many, many books, high stature, prominent. They walk into a room of 1,000 Jews, everybody stands up in the first 30 milliseconds, recognizing the greatness of these people. You walk into their apartment, sparse as anything. There's a beds, if they're married, beds, a dining room table, bookcases filled with books, and a desk, a table, a chair, and you say, "Where is everything?" Uh,
Mm.
Did they just put you out yesterday because you didn't pay your rent? Where is everything? And the answer is A, it's all I need. But another answer is, as we see, so the student who is being asked, where is your furniture? he says to the person, he says, where's your furniture now? And the man says, I'm traveling. I don't bring it along on my journey. And so he says to him, I too am on a journey. This is only a stop on the way to the world to come.
Mhm.
So I also don't need all that furniture. This is a pit stop on the
Mm,
way to the banquet hall. So I
mm.
don't need all that because it's just relatively a few moments as compared to the eternity of Olam Haba, the world to come. Anyway,
Amen.
yeah, uh, I agree with you. I think to me, I found it always a beautiful and powerful thought when I'm thinking of some of the minutiae. I think every religion or faith tradition has their what is perceived as their minutiae. Does this really matter?
Mm,
And this teaching is trying to ingrain within us that yes, it does. Yes, it does. These
mm, mm,
even the little insignificant, seemingly insignificant things are the tickets to the great banquet hall.
mm.
Okay. Any questions, thoughts on that before we hop on to teaching number 20?
I agree with it. I think it's how we live our life in this world where it's like we've got to be faithful stewards of what God's given us uh, in preparation for the world to come.
Yeah, I agree. It's a mindset. It's a very
Mm,
different mindset than what the
mm.
average person may have who
Yes.
is, who is not leaning towards spirituality or whatever.
No.
It's amassing. The mindset today is amassing, it's consumption, it's having
I know.
more and more. Who dies with the most toys kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Kind of
yeah,
the pic, kind of the picture that I got was a bride right before she walks. When they swing open the doors and she walks in, she's got the last 30 seconds to make sure the veil's right, make sure her train's right, make sure,
yes,
the sleeves are puffy like they're supposed to, that everything's in order. And then they swing open the doors and then you enter, you know, but that's I guess a short term picture versus um, the story about that rabbi who has a place to sleep, a place to read, and 15 bookshelves chock-a-block full of books.
exactly.
Um, you know, so that's
Right,
the way I saw it.
right. But I think you mentioned an interesting analogy because imagine if the bride in those last 30 seconds before they come down to, in Judaism, the chuppah and other traditions, they come down
Mhm.
to where the officiant and the husband to be are standing, they
Right.
come down. Imagine if those last 30 seconds, they would have the person doing their hair and everything else, blacken every second tooth, and they would exchange their wedding gown for some rags, and they would look horrible and they would
Hmm.
limp and all that. That those 30 seconds determine a lot about how she will be received at
Yeah.
where the officiant and the husband are standing.
Hmm.
Like you
Mm,
say,
mm,
oh my God,
Yeah.
what the heck? Whew,
Yeah. I was
mm.
just
I don't remember that. What happened here? So, like, even those last 30 seconds are very important.
Yeah.
I'll,
Amen. Amen.
yeah, I'll give you an anecdote. In 1996, there was a congressman from Baltimore. His name was Kwesi Mfume,
Mm,
African American gentleman who was tapped to be the national director of the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
oh.
And I invited him to come to one Shabbat morning service because he, in his new position, was going to have a lot to say about Black-Jewish relations.
Hmm.
So I wanted him to come to the synagogue. 700 people came. A lot of people didn't like the fact that he's addressing the congregation from the pulpit on a Shabbat morning, and he's not Jewish. Some people had a lot to say about it. Some people didn't show up because of that. And some people, I'm sorry to say, objected on the fact that he's a black man talking on the Jewish pulpit. Those were not my or the synagogue's finest moments with those opinions. Anyway, I feel. Anyway, he came to the synagogue. He spoke for a long time and was excellent. He's a good speaker, and he's very friendly and warm and very kind. And this was just after he had joined the Million Man March with Louis Farrakhan. That didn't sit well with many of our Jewish friends in the synagogue. But I asked him about that, and he answered very respectfully. And I worked my way carefully. I knew I was going to ask that question, and I crafted it very quick, very carefully. So that, anyway, so several people later said, boy, hearing you ask that question the way you did was worth coming. So I was happy. I was happy that that worked, if you will. I mention this because a few weeks later, he called me, left a message on my voice machine, 1996, and he said he would like me to deliver the closing benediction at his inauguration as president of the NAACP. A closing benediction will end the entire ceremony. At the ceremony will be President Clinton, Vice President Gore, Coretta Scott King, her family. Would I accept that honor to be the closing benediction? Oh yeah, let me check my schedule. Gee, I think I have a manicure. I don't think I can come. I said, of course, if I can be there, of course, I'd like to be there. The reason I mention this is because all the speakers that morning were gathered behind the staging area because President Clinton wanted to come around and greet everybody and have a picture taken with all the speakers. So that included me because I was doing the closing benediction. So there were about 15 of us in the circle. All of a sudden we see flash, 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 flash. And we know that President Clinton is nearby. He's coming. And now he's greeting the first person in line, the second person. They have a little, small talk. As he's getting closer to me, I am primping. I'm making sure that my tie, the knot is really good. I'm trying to make sure that everything, the whole thing, the eyebrows. I am primping like I never primped before. And anyway, he stands in front of me. He's 6'4". He's a tall gentleman. I'm very happy to meet you, man. We had a little very small talk. I have a picture, very, very nice. He moves on to the next one. Cardinal Keeler of Baltimore was the next one, a few others. And as he's walking down, the only thought that I'm saying to myself is, I never primped before God in this way, ever. In other words, if I go to the synagogue and I'm ready to stand and say the Shema, one of the main prayers of the Jewish people, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Or if I'm ready to say any of the high holiday prayers where you try to get into a mindset where you're beseeching, you're asking God, forgive me for my sins, I crown you as my king, etc., etc. Those would be good times for me to primp and prepare in a different way. I don't have to sit there and, brush down my eyebrows, but that sense of preparation that I did for Clinton, never did I do in prayer. And I felt bad. I felt bad that I never had that sense of what would have been very, very proper. So that was kind of like the ante room. That was like the ante room before everybody goes out on the stage and has a seat in the audience, whatever. But yeah, I remember that feeling so intensely. This is what, 1996, 06, 16. It's a long time ago. It's almost 30 years ago, I think. And I still remember that feeling very intensely. Oh boy, I think I've let God down that I did this for a, a, a king of flesh and blood, but how come I haven't done this yet? Anyway, so here comes teaching number 20. It's one of my favorite lessons in all the teachings of Pirke about the ethics of the fathers. And it has guided me as a rabbi, as a human being. It may pack a punch for all of us. This is a teaching of Rabbi Meir, M-E-I-R, Rabbi Meir, teaching number 20 in the Chabad listing there. He says, I'll say it in Hebrew and then translate, Al tistakel bekankan. Don't look at the container, ella, rather, bema sheyesh bo. Don't look at the container, rather look what's inside the container. So did he come up with this after a nice shopping trip to wherever he goes for groceries? Don't look at the container, just uncap the ragu spaghetti sauce and see what's inside. You know, is that where he's coming from? Where's he coming from with that one? So we have a popular saying, don't judge a book by its cover. He's
Mm.
saying it in a different way. Don't judge the container, rather judge by what's in the container. And basically, I think what he's saying is that external appearances do not define a thing or a person. It's not the externality. It's the internal qualities that matter the most. So I think that Rabbi Meir is warning us not to be deceived by appearances, because there are people of regal bearing. We've met people like that who they come into the room and you say, I don't know who that is, but that's a somebody. You ever have that experience? I don't know that's a somebody. I don't know who it is, but wow. There's some people who have that. They look like a real somebody, even if you don't know them. Or they have a commanding physical appearance. Bill Clinton, 6'4", has a commanding physical appearance. And they may, in fact, be uh, people of regal bearing, etc. They may be that way exactly. Or they may present themselves as scholarly or proficient in any number of areas, but may be quite different on the inside. So whatever they present, they could be that. But sometimes whatever people present on the outside doesn't always necessarily match what's going on the inside. Sometimes a rough exterior often hides a good heart and a soul. They say about Israelis are called sabras. A sabra is a fruit. I don't know what it's called in English. You may know. It's a prickly fruit. It's a prickly pear. I think that's what it's called in English. If you touch it, if in the grocery store, in the fruit section, if it has it, the sabra, if they didn't clip all the thorny outside nibs, you would not be able to pick it up. Somebody's got to have good gloves. I don't mean winter gloves, but like real good gloves, hold it and clip it, because otherwise you would prick your fingers. It's that prickly. Why are Israelis called a sabra? Because they say we are, I say we because I'm Israeli, not just because we live here, but I was born in Israel. They say that, yeah, we can be prickly on the outside, and we can be prickly on the outside. Just watch the Knesset when they're in session, and you'll know how prickly we can be on the outside. But on the inside, they say, we are very sweet, we're very kind, very considerate, very loving, very warm, embracing, etc. So on the outside, we may present, because of many reasons. There's a lot of wars. People are on edge. We hear another siren. Here's a this, here's a that. People smoke like crazy in this country. And it could come from different emotional backgrounds. Who knows? But check the person on the inside and don't be judging them by the prickly
That's
outside. So
lovely.
it's a lovely image. And this is what Rabbi Meir, I think, is saying. Look past the trappings and take the time to seek out the essential person.
Amen.
Yeah, thank you. Rabbi Meir continues with his observation of don't look at the container, rather see what's inside the container. He says that there can be a new jug filled with old vintage wine and an old jug that doesn't even contain old wine, meaning in an educational context, a young teacher can contain deep wisdom and surprising insights for their age. Our next lecturer is Professor blah, blah, blah of you name it university, and they will be talking about fill in the blank. And they get up and they're ready to talk about an intricate, complicated topic or subject, and you go, this is a 25-year-old. This is going to take 4 minutes. What do they know? What could they possibly know in their 24 years about life experiences or whatever? And you are ready to dismiss them because they're 25. It's a new jug. Well, who knows? Who knows what's in it? And we tend to think there's not much in there for us. And yet they can surprise us. And sometimes an old teacher can teach nothing but old, stale teachings with nothing fresh and innovative. So don't judge a book by its cover. Just because somebody is old doesn't mean that they have the experience of the older. Just because they're young, it doesn't mean they don't have the insights and knowledge of somebody older. They tell the anecdote of somebody who's in a company, they're like the first vice president or something. The vice president is ready to retire, and they're now looking for somebody to take the place of the president of the company. So this gentleman is very, very convinced because he's been there for 15 years and he's been the first vice president. And he's pretty confident they're going to lift him up to the top spot. So he goes to his interview and they're looking at his papers and whatever. And he says, should I feel like a shoo-in? I mean, I've had experience, 15 years experience in this company. That's very valuable. And they said, we've looked through your records. We've asked people about your performance. You say that you have 15 years of experience, but what seems to be more obvious is you've had 1 year's experience 15 times, which is very different. So you can be somewhere in a spot and just not renew, not refresh. And you can be an older person and not have all that people expect from you as an older container. And you can be a young container and people don't expect all that greatness to come from you. And boom, look at that. Wow, that was the best lecture I've ever heard from a 25-year-old. I can't believe it. So this is Rabbi Meir saying, don't judge the container, rather judge what's inside. The corollary to that is take time to see what's inside. Take time to make that connection with what is internal and don't be distracted by what is external. And of course, there are proverbial old vessels that contain fresh and invigorating ideas that inspire and excite. Even though the container looks incapable of such achievements, they're only 25. What do they know? What could they know? So age alone doesn't guarantee wisdom, and it's not the container, but the contents. I think Rabbi Meir is also reminding us that it's easy to judge people by like one facet of them, usually an external one. So this week I was teaching my high school girls about how to take Mother Goose nursery rhymes and turn them into Jewish education. And so we went to Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. And I said, I took a few minutes and we all had handouts about it. Here's how we turn it into a Jewish lesson. But I'm bringing it here in this point because they mentioned the oldness of King Cole 3 different times. Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and a merry old soul was he. It seems to me like all they noticed about Old King Cole is that he's old. Was there nothing else to old King Cole? If you hear what I'm saying, there was no other facet. Now that he's 80 plus, 90, whatever he was, there's nothing else to know about him. All we detect is he's old. There's a failure to go into the substrata of the king. All we see is his age and why. So he calls for his pipe and he calls for his bowl and he calls for his three fiddlers. He calls for them. Does he have power to call for them? Is he an old king, powerless, with power? Do they ever bring it to him? I don't remember the poem ending with the, and so they bring it to him. Maybe he's just, I need this, I need that. He's barking because he's old, but nobody really follows up on what he's asked for. I don't know. But it's interesting again that that seems to be the facet that's most recognizable about King Cole is that he's old. But it's not fair. It's not fair to the king. Yeah. So just to wrap this up, it's not the color or facial features or age or religion or other outer manifestation of a person that is a reliable predictor. Rather, it's what's inside that defines the reliable aspects of people.
Amen.
So you have to investigate, look beyond it, look beyond what you see, and you'll discover what is more worth seeing in a person rather than just the outside features. Any questions, comments, observations about this or what we've learned so far? We're going to close, by the way, with three quick teachings from chapter 4, and that will end our study of chapter 4. And then next time we meet, God willing, we'll begin chapter 5. But anything to say about this or the previous one before?
I like the observation that you made there, Rabbi, the quote from Rabbi Meir. I like that. That strikes a chord with me that it's what's inside that counts. And it's not necessarily, most times it is, but it's not necessarily a function of age and experience. Somebody who's young can have so much to give too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, Steve Harvey. He does all those Family Feud shows. Steve Harvey.
I'm not, I'll take your word for it.
Okay. I think he does American Family Feud, South African American Feud, right? He does all these shows. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. He often has kids who have achieved some major milestone by whatever it was. And what these kids say and their observations in life just at the age of 10 and the pearls of wisdom that drop
Yeah.
out of their mouths sometimes makes you
Mm.
fall off your chair. Like, whoa, where did they get that? Where did they get that? What an interesting, astute observation of the world or the situation, whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, they knock us. What's his name? Art Linkletter, many, many centuries ago. I don't remember the name of the show. He used to interview kids. He was going for the entertainment value of the kids. You would ask them a question, and the funnier or weirder their answer was, the
Kids
more
say the
entertaining.
darndest things.
Kids, thank you very much. Kids say the darndest things. And he would just,
Mhm.
they're sitting on stools and he's got a microphone, his question to the next person next. But again, the funnier they were, that was the entertainment value of the show. Um, but Steve Harvey, yeah, of course he's going for entertainment. He didn't become a billionaire overnight, but he invites these kids, and what they say is not entertaining as entertainment would be expected to be entertaining. It's because of the depth that they have already at such a young age, from experience, from their parents, from life, being bullied, whatever it is. And they just,
Reminds me,
yeah.
reminds me of that psalm. Doesn't it say, out of the mouths of babes and infants that thou hast brought perfect praise? Remember that in the Psalms? Isn't that in the
Is
Psalms?
that in the Psalms? It could be.
I, yeah, I, It just, it's a lovely saying.
It's a lovely saying, and I think it reinforces what Rabbi Meir is
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
trying to
yeah, yeah,
teach
yeah,
us. That, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What did you want to say?
Yeah, Rabbi, I was having a conversation with someone over the past couple of weeks about what we're doing here about the Pirke Avot.
Okay.
And so I'm going to be careful how I say this, but I was telling them that if you read like Pirke Avot and then go back to some of the New Testament parables, okay, um, we all know that everything's in context, but like I'm thinking in my brain right now about the reference to the wineskins and the
Oh,
wine and the different wineskins. When you were talking about that, it just gave me another take on it, where they're talking about putting new wine into an old skin, and vice versa. And
right.
I know you're somewhat familiar with some of it, but it was just kind of interesting, proving my own point that I was making to someone this week about the point that you're making.
Oh, okay.
That literally, I didn't understand the depth of like Perky Avot, but like listening to you explain certain things, like your own like life experience through what you're reading, it's just making me think about things that I'm very familiar with on the other side. If that makes sense what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. What would be the parallel teaching?
So Yeshua, when he was, I'm just thinking about this. It's about you can't fit the new wine
Oh,
into old wineskins that are not prepared. And so it was talking. He was talking about the wine inside of the wine skins, and you're talking about that today, looking inside. And then when you're talking about looking inside, um, also my mind goes the parables where it talks about the inside of the cup, making sure that the inside of the cup is clean, and like outwardly, you put on this show that I'm clean outside, but inside, the your cup is not clean.
yeah.
It's just interesting, we've been following you now for some time, so I think the relationship, some things that you talk about, it's very helpful because the depth of like, and my word that I'm going to use here, uh, parabolic language. So now it's giving me a new fond joy for like midrash, or like this aspect of Perky Avot that you're reading. I hope this is making sense.
It
So
is
when I
making,
when I
yeah.
when I when I tell a Christian, this is nothing new. Like when I'm talking to like someone who's trying to talk to me about something in like the Christian Bible, quote unquote, I would say, well, it's very parabolic. What are you talking about? So I would say, well, go to Perky Avot. Read,
Yeah.
Perky Avot. You're going to see the similarities in the way it's
Yes,
written, if that makes sense.
it
Mm.
makes
Yeah.
sense. And okay, I didn't know that there were notable parallel um, parables.
I think that's true.
Oh, that
Yes, and it was interesting. I won't go down that road right now, but um, I've done some studies over the years where they were given like a New Testament to someone who was scholarly,
yeah.
and they would read it and give you a Jewish interpretation of it, and it would be based off of Midrash, Pirkei Avot. So I enjoy listening to you talk, because this is why I'm laughing quite often when you're talking about things, because it's just proving, my point that over the years things have been misinterpreted to mean certain things,
Yes.
and then when I listen to you talk, you're giving us the different perspectives, I guess would be the word, how things
Okay.
could be thought about. So
Yes.
you are just proving my point that I have with other people throughout the week about Perky Vote, is what I'm saying.
Wonderful. All right.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yes.
And I understand what you're saying. So that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Very, very
Yes.
much. Good. Okay, here three quick bits and pieces from chapter 4. There's a lot to say about them, but I just wanted to, these are quick touches on a canvas before we start chapter 5 next week. So one of them is, there are three of them. One is them, it's Rabbi, in this is teaching number 11 in the Chabad version of Pirke Avot. I say Chabad version because many of the books on Pirke Avot sometimes tend to number the teachings differently. So in one book, it may be teaching number 12, and in another book, it may be teaching number 14, it may be in the teaching 17. This is teaching number 11 in the Chabad website that is available to you on our list. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, "One who fulfills one commandment or mitzvah in Hebrew acquires an angel advocate, and one who commits a transgression acquires an angel prosecutor." Well, that's kind of interesting. We used to tell this to our girls when they were growing up. That again, even when they thought something was a little silly or, this sounds so minute, who cares? Why does God care? Whatever. And we would say, well, every time you do a mitzvah, whatever it is, you're kind to the elderly, you give some charity, you speak nicely to somebody. Every time you do something that God really appreciates and says, that's how I want people to be. Every time you do something like that, you acquire an advocating angel on your behalf when it comes to the day of judgment. And if you commit a transgression, it's the other side of the coin, you acquire a prosecuting angel on the day of judgment. So it's almost begging the question, which would you rather have on your judgment day? Would you rather have a chorus of prosecuting angels say, "Oh, Elon Adler seems like a nice guy, teaches a lot of good stuff, people appreciate it, they were blah, but here's what he didn't do, here's where he failed, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. How about this one? Remember that one, January 9th? Would you rather have a chorus of those, or would you rather have a chorus of, yeah, we know that he failed in this, he was weak and did that, blah, 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 but, every week he takes of his time to prepare a class and gives a class to appreciative people. And and last Tuesday, he gave charity way over and above what he has. It dug into his actual money reserve and not just the charity reserve, or the way he spoke so nicely to somebody. I'll give you an example. We have somebody that comes and cleans the house every 2 weeks. And besides cleaning and sweeping, mopping, washing, changing the beds, whatever, she also empties our recycling bins. So there's three different bins, bottles and whatever, to return that some charity gets the value of the return. There's paper, all the paper stuff, and then there's plastics and whatever. So in the paper bin, there's a lot of old newspapers that we've gone through and mail. Does anybody still get mail? A lot of mail, all the paper products and magazines that we've looked through and whatever. There happens to be a magazine within the Orthodox community where each issue is about this thick. It's a very thick, heavy, comes out every week. And I just finished reading thumbing through about 10 of them. I put it into the bin for paper recycling. And a few minutes ago, I took it out of the recycling, figuring that when she has to come, the next time she comes, she's got to empty that recycling bin. And with all the other heavy stuff that she's got to carry, with the other 2 bins and what's ever already in the paper bin, let me take all those heavy magazines out. I'll put them tomorrow or the next day in the recycling bins in the neighborhood, so she doesn't have to carry this extra load of heavy magazines. It's a big schlep as it is. I need to add 10 thick magazines for her to schlep across the street to put in a recycling bin. So I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that I believe in my faith tradition that that kind of consideration gives me an advocating angel. Because even though I didn't do this, didn't do that, failed at this, didn't quite do that properly, blah, blah, blah. But look, advocating angels say, but look at all the other stuff that he did. That was wonderful, outstanding, remarkable, whatever. So that's what Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov is saying. You do a good deed, you get yourself an advocating angel, and who doesn't want that? Just be careful that if you do something that's way off or not acceptable or you're very embarrassed by it, you acquire a prosecuting angel, and wouldn't you rather have a chorus of advocating angels? So it made a big impression on our girls. They say, "Oh yeah, thank you for reminding us of that." Okay, so it worked for us. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, his teaching number 18. He says, "Do not try to appease your friend at the height of his anger." Your friend is very angry. They could be angry at you. They could be angry at somebody else. They are cheesed off and they are out of control. Not a good time to try to appease them. Or say to them, calm down. It's not so bad. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, he doesn't say, here's what you ought to do instead. Like, let them get the heat out. Just be present in case they need you. But at the moment of their greatest anger, don't do anything because it's not going to work. I think it's a good idea. You know, some people need time to blow over, and then you can talk to them. But in their heat is not a good time. He also suggests, do not try to comfort a person while their dead lays before them. And that is actually a teaching in the Mishnah, that says that somebody who has experienced a death in the immediate family, from the time that they died until that person is buried, even a ritual Jew has certain things that they are absolved from doing, making blessings on food, prayer, etc. Why? Because they are too consumed by what just happened to them. So don't try to comfort people when their dead lays before them, not even physically dead, but you know that they're just overly consumed by the emotions of the moment. You can't comfort people like that. It used to be the tradition, the Jewish tradition, that you didn't go to visit the house of mourning, which generally is called Shiva, 7 days. People from the immediate family sit in the house of mourning. It used to be the custom that for the first 3 days you didn't go because you can't console people in the first 3 days after they experience such a terrible loss. So you would say, what's the difference between the third day and the fourth day? I don't know. But again, it recognizes the idea that when somebody is in deep personal loss or heightened anger, cheesed off at something, not the best times to try to appease or comfort or calm down. It has to blow over, not that mourning blows over. It just takes different shapes and forms as time goes along. But these are not good times to try to appease or calm people down. That's why the general rule is when a person visits a Shiva house, it's a house of mourning, the general custom is not to say anything to the mourners until they say something. So sometimes you could be sitting there for an hour, and if they're crying or not saying anything, whatever, that's what you do. You sit there until they're opening. If they don't, I've been to Shiva houses where people have sat there for an hour silent. Why? Because the family sat there silent. It's what they need. So everybody's quiet. And people get up, they wish them long life, and nobody said a word. Why? Because you can't appease them. If they open up with something, oh, I'd like to hear something about Harvey, who just passed away. I'm sure there are stories we don't know about him. Can you share anything about him? That gives an indication that maybe they have a little opening for something. But otherwise, they're not open. And Those are not good times. Last teaching for today. Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar would say, envy, lust, and honor drive a person from this world. Envy, lust, and honor drive a person from this world. Does he really mean that you give up your shares in the world to come if you're too envious, too lustful, and always seeking honor? Perhaps that's what he means. What he might more mean is that things like envy, people are envy, jealousy, consumed by it. You can't just get a drop of envy. You are consumed by envy or lust. It's hard to have a little lust. Lust usually turns out to be exponential. You want more of it, whatever lust is. And honor, if you're driven by honor and being honored, you're not satisfied with one trophy. So in that sense, it removes you from this world because you become so all consumed by these things that you don't pay real proper attention to everything else going on in your life. So maybe in that sense, it removes you or drives you from this world. Uh, any last minute comments, observations, questions?
I have a question, Rabbi.
Sure.
Would you recommend
Yes.
the
You didn't
the
ask your, I'm sorry.
well, no, the question is the Chabad version of Pirke Avot or the Art Scroll. Which is easier to read in your opinion? If you could,
Well,
give an answer like that.
yeah, the Chabad one that I provide every week is just the text. It's just the text. It doesn't have the commentaries. The commentaries are really what's the enriching part of any volume. Because you see that sometimes it's very enigmatic. Like this one. What do you mean drives a person from the world? Giving up a share in the world to come. It's so consuming you don't pay attention to anything else in your life. In that sense, it's removed you from the world. Art Scroll is always excellent in their commentaries. So if it was between the two, now Chabad may have, I don't have it on my shelf, I'm not aware of it, but they may have it, probably do. Chabad may have a volume of Pirkei Avot. But anything with a rich commentary is worth it. If it's just text, it's like a walnut without a crack, well, a nutcracker.
So would they be numbered a little bit differently?
Yes, sometimes they are
Okay.
numbered differently.
All right.
Some texts put
Okay. Thank you.
two or three teachings as one teaching. So now the numbering is off already. But yeah,
Gotcha.
anything with a commentary is a lot richer than just the text. It's like
Okay.
somebody
Thank you.
it's like somebody without teeth trying to eat a walnut. You know,
Got
you're
you.
not going to get much
Got
out
you.
of it. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, parting shots? I could use a parting shot right now, and I'll go to the bourbon cabinet to see what's there. Listen, I'm glad you guys stuck through this. We had a rough beginning, but I think we accomplished a lot of good thoughts, good
That's
lessons,
good.
things to take with us through life, or at least
Amen.
the next hour. And
Amen.
I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I wish you a good day, a happy and a healthy year.
Thank you.
All of our worthy prayers should be answered for good.
Amen.
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 Thank you. So thanks for your participation. Just be well, and God willing, we'll see you next week, and I'll update on what we're going to be studying next.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Bye. Bye.
All righty. Take care. Have a great day.
Hey, L'chaim.
L'chaim. I like that.